Good morning, Steph.
So if somebody you're prosecuting gives you a note in all caps that said you found nothing, then you would just let it go, wouldn't you?
I would be inclined to just dismiss the case. How can I overcome that?
That was snark, right? I like that. Yeah, I don't. He seems to be, like I was saying, who knows if he's sensitive to being a worldwide laughingstock, but even for him, that seems a little unhinged. As you tweeted, Special Counsel Jack Smith ramps up criminal investigation of Trump's crimes because justice matters. To you and I, who feels like justice is moving way too slow, it does feel like movement, doesn't it? It does feel like something. You tell me.
Yeah, I think the investigative pace has definitely quickened under Jack Smith, but I think that fairly raises the question, why was it moving so slowly under Merrick Garland et al.? And you know what? Part of it is water under the bridge. We're going to need to tackle that question someday to make sure it never happens again. But listen, if we are now on track and Jack Smith is moving forward quickly, maybe even at light speed, given some of the subpoenas he's been issuing, I'm all for it. I'm here for it.
What does it tell you as a prosecutor, the various subpoenas? Obviously, you referred to orange blob of trans fats, also referred to the, Georgia call. But what, from your pattern, the pattern of subpoenas and things you're seeing out of Jack Smith, what does it look like in terms of J6, espionage, Georgia? I mean, I was hearing somebody, I wanted to get your take, I can't remember which legal analyst, saying something about, it might have been Neil Katyal, just about whether they're going to prosecute all three of these things, or if you prosecute one, does it make it less likely you would prosecute the other? That doesn't make sense to me, but you tell me.
I mean, I think all of these crimes should be prosecuted. The biggest question in my mind is, can you bring them all together in one conspiracy, or do you have to do them separately?
Yeah.
There are good tactical arguments on both sides of that. One of the things you want to do is you want to put your best foot forward in your most important prosecution without diluting it with too many crimes or too many other stories, because you want the jury to kind of remain focused like a laser beam on the most important, the most dangerous, the most readily provable crimes that Donald Trump committed. Listen, I had lots of killers in Washington, D.C. who killed 3, 4, 5, 6 people. That doesn't mean I necessarily brought 5 or 6 murder prosecutions. Sometimes I only indicted the 2 or 3 strongest cases, and I let those cases take the lead and sort of, tell me how much farther should I go, or do I need to go to protect the public?
Yeah. I mean, as a layperson, when I first heard it, I thought, so that means if you rob a bank and shoot someone, they're only going to, it almost seemed like someone was saying, well, it's too many crimes. Yeah. He's a former president, so we can't prosecute all of them. I mean, that doesn't make sense to me, but it does seem like Georgia and J6 are the same crime, aren't they? I get that espionage, I guess, might be separate, or is there anything in the espionage that's connected to the rest of it, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's all sort of an abuse of the power of the presidency. It's all an attempt to either, I think his earliest crimes in 2016 were, crimes designed to acquire the power of the presidency, and all of his crimes thereafter were to retain the power of the presidency unlawfully or profit off of the power of the presidency. So I think there's some connective tissue that sort of pulls all of these crimes together, which again doesn't mean they should necessarily all be indicted and tried together. That's a tactical issue. But to go back to your original question, what does it tell us, the way Jack Smith has been operating? It tells us he's casting a very wide net, and he wants to see how all of these crimes might be either part of a whole, or how some of them, like the Georgia state election crimes, might help bolster the proof of the insurrection. So I think he's doing exactly the right thing. And Steph, when you realize that in recent weeks, 3 former close White House aides to Donald Trump went in the grand jury, 2 White House counsel went in the grand jury, even, the irredeemable racist Stephen Miller went in the grand jury, plus all of these indictments that have now been served on the state election officials for the fake elector scheme, on Brad Raffensperger for his communications with Trump and the Trump organization. I mean, it's on. It's on. Yeah. It's about time, and I'm glad it's on.
Well, you said it best on Twitter. You said there's no justice if there's not equal justice. Trump would be arrested and indicted if he was anyone else. I mean, I get it, the whole like, oh, if you're going to shoot at the king, make sure you don't miss.
Right.
But I mean, I guess you're right. I mean, I guess that's what's going on behind closed doors, deciding which case first. Do we prosecute them all together as one big case? I mean, I guess that's that. I hate to say it, but it's almost like the delay might be because there are so many crimes and they keep piling up, right? I mean, espionage happened right on top of the J6 investigation.
I think as a practical matter, Steph, you're right, but that's not a good reason to decline to start bringing indictments where the evidence supports bringing indictments. And I get the whole, if you take a shot at the king, you got to kill the king thing. But when the king on a daily basis is victimizing the peasants and the serfs and the commoners, that would be us, I think you have a responsibility to take on the king, even if you don't have the fatal shot. I think you need to incapacitate the king, to stop the damage that he continues to do. He's still undermining our democracy, and he's still undermining the faith and the trust that people have in the electoral system. And I think that needs to be attacked, wrestled to the ground.
Yeah. And somewhere a prosecutor is readying the case against the NFTs, which will be the new Trump University. But okay. You said it's great that Special Master BS has been dismissed, but the fact that Trump appointed Judge Cannon wrongfully exercised jurisdiction, thereby interfering 11th Circuit's word in a federal investigation into Trump, thereby benefiting Trump, feels kind of investigatable. Yes, I love that he leaves a trail of people that need to be investigated, including his own lawyers and judges, right?
Yeah, and when the 11th Circuit used that word, interfere, they said Judge Aileen Cannon interfered in a federal criminal investigation, not just any investigation, one that has the potential to compromise our national security. That's strong language. I mean, that is obstruction of justice when somebody interferes in a federal criminal investigation. I hope there are some judicial inquiries or investigations up and running to see why in the world Judge Cannon did what she did.
Yeah. You also, let's talk about Meadows for a minute. You said Mark Meadows was like a clearinghouse for treasonous texts from congressional Republicans trying to overturn the 2020 election. Give us the legal breakdown on that, because once again, a layperson, you're like, how did these 34 people get to stay in Congress and participate in the overthrow of the United States government?
When you read some of those text messages that were released in advance of or disclosed by Talking Points memo in advance of the J6 report, we're going to hear a lot more about them very soon. It's clear there was a concerted effort by Republican members of Congress and Mark Meadows to overturn the lawful results of a presidential election. I would call that a conspiracy to defraud the United States, which is a direct charge in the federal code. So, this is. I hope Jack Smith has the stuff to bring charges against everybody who was part of a conspiracy to overthrow our democracy, including all of those Republican members of Congress. Here's something to keep an eye on, Steph, when the new Congress is sworn in January.
Yeah.
Remember, the 14th Amendment to the Constitution expressly disqualifies insurrectionists from holding office. I have a feeling when you see these people like the Marjorie Taylor Greenes about to be sworn in, you're going to have other members of Congress objecting based on the 14th Amendment. And the Republicans love the Constitution, don't they? Well, they're about to have it used against them.
Yeah. Let's talk about this. The DOJ announced a woman from Northeast Georgia has been indicted by a federal grand jury over the alleged bomb threat against the headquarters of the DNC in Athens, Clark County. She's charged with one count of communicating a bomb threat and one count of making false statements. I at first thought this was the DNC in DC,
in Washington.
Yeah, but it's not. But it reminded me. Why do you think nothing's been uncovered about the bombs at the DNC and RNC?
So it's one of two reasons. One, notwithstanding the saturation of surveillance cameras and Ring doorbell cameras in Washington, D.C., which frankly I welcomed as a prosecutor in D.C. because it captured so much evidence of crime that was very helpful.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding all that, it might just be that they don't have enough evidence to identify who planted those pipe bombs, or they do, and there is some reason they're not moving, or they have moved out in a way that is not publicly disclosed yet. But I don't know. It's a head scratcher to me.
I get what you're saying. It's Marjorie Taylor Greene. Okay. Oh, all right. Maybe I'm jumping out ahead. Okay.
Oh, God.
Let's also talk about
No comment from Glenn.
every once in a while, I'll see if I can hook him. Okay. D.C. Bar Council urges Giuliani be disbarred after panel says he likely committed ethics violations. I mean, this is another one us lay people go, how does this guy still have a... Well, A, I want to know why he's not in jail. 2, I want to know why he still has a law license. So this is, I guess that it'll be a final decision in several weeks, right after hearing recommendations. But how do you get to go to court and make this many false statements and keep your license?
You don't. And the good news is it looks like he is in the chute to be disbarred. And, you know, I love the gentleman who was I'll call him the prosecutor. He was the one representing bar counsel at the Giuliani hearings, advocating that he should be held accountable and be disbarred. And he was actually like a special prosecutor back in the Watergate days. He's been around the block. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, and I apologize to him. But he you know, I was watching what he said, and he said, listen, at the end of the day, Rudy Giuliani weaponized the courts to try to undermine our Constitution. And for that, he loses his right to practice law. I mean, and that kind of sums up what Rudy did.
Yeah. So we're going on vacation in a couple of hours. If history is any guide, indictments will drop at noon Eastern when we get off.
Noon Eastern, right?
Yeah.
Right at noon. Yep.
Yes.
We're not back on until January 2nd live. I mean, do you feel like there's any time frame? Because I know that we talked earlier and you said after the midterms, you know, if we don't see indictments, but what time frame seems reasonable to you?
You know, it seems like we should see indictments, you know, after the first of the year, late winter, early spring, at a minimum on the Mar-a-Lago documents crimes, because that's kind of an open shut case. He had classified documents in his desk drawer and then admitted in writing that he took them more openly and transparently than other presidents. There is a case that can be proved to a jury in about an hour. We just need somebody to indict the man for his crime. And you know, here's and I'm hoping, I tried this last year. I'm gonna stick with it. I hope we can make 2023 the year of accountability, because, like I say, what would be so wrong about equal justice for all?
Yeah. Exactly, because justice matters. Can you get a bigger sign? I'm going to get you a bigger sign for Christmas.
Bigger sign, and I need a bigger gavel.
A bigger
too.
gavel.
Oh, yeah. There it is.
There is no gavel bigger than yours, Glenn Kirschner. What? All right. Merry Christmas, Mahana Kwanzaa. We'll see you. We'll see you next year, Hansel.
Love you, Steph. See you
Bye.
guys. Happy holidays.
Thanks, Glenn.
Happy holidays, Glenn.
There we go.
Ow.